Hello there. My name is Rebecca Cafiero, and it is my pleasure to have this call today, and it will be recorded because I know there's going to be a lot of phenomenal content that I frankly feel like isn't talked enough about in network marketing and solopreneurship, which is not just how you earn money, but what you do to protect your money. And so I have the pleasure of inviting someone on this call that has hugely changed my business because they've changed how much I get to keep of the business that I earn. And this is attorney Scott Burnett, who is not only an advisor for many different network marketing companies, not just the associates, but also the actual company owners. He is certified to teach CE to accountants on behalf of the IRS, works with a ton of small business owners, but 50% of his clients are network marketers. So I know I had gone to attorneys in the past, I had gone to CPAs in the past that didn't really understand our business. And I frankly got advice that I wasn't sure was really sound. So when I met Scott and was referred to him, I felt like he I don't say took the wool off my eyes, but he just gave me transparency that I could understand, that made me realize how important it is to really, truly treat this business like a business. And so I'm really excited today to bring him out and have him share a little bit of tips to make sure that you guys are all knowledgeable about what is out there and that you're not afraid of the information, but you can utilize it to empower yourself and your business. And again, feel free to share this with your teams. So without further ado, I would love to bring out Scott. And Scott, if there's anything I missed in your background, please go ahead and go over it now. Oops, Scott, hold on one sec. I apologize. You're still muted. Let me unmute you. Oh. Uh-oh. See, guys, you don't have to be a pro. Oh, Scott, hang on one second. I need to unmute you. I'm trying to find you on here. Hang on, guys. I apologize. I'm like, there we go. It's because you're under iPhone. I was looking for Scott. Okay, Scott, let's try that again from the top. I'm not hearing you at all.
I know, because I'm joking with you.
And that's the other thing I didn't explain about him is he also has an amazing sense of humor, which frankly is something in an attorney that comes as a surprise, but it's an added bonus.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Hey, everybody. I guess the biggest thing I would say is that my background is I'm an attorney, but I was an attorney who did a lot of litigation, so I would sue business owners. So I always feel like I have this sort of unique perspective that I see it from both sides. I see how somebody comes after you, but then I also see the things that I learned being in business. And I think what started me in this career was that I got audited and I got blown up in that audit. And that was the moment that I changed what I was doing for a living. Instead of suing people, I started teaching people and sharing what I thought was the kind of the common mistakes that we think of as business owners in terms of who's responsible for what. So I'm hoping that today I'm going to share some tips with you that I think will be great and opportunistic for you and maybe at the right moment for you to hear it, because I believe that with all my being is that when you're ready to hear something, the universe kind of makes that sort of happen. So if you're tuning in, I guarantee you there must be something about this call that's important for you. So what questions do you have for me, my young friend?
Oh my goodness. Well, lots of them. So first of all, what is your number one piece of advice or maybe number one tip that when someone reaches out in the network marketing industry, we often get started just very much as a hobby. And so if you could talk a little bit about bridging that gap from at what point does it stop being a hobby and does it really need to be treated as a business, whether that's on a monthly or yearly income?
So I would say, the point that you're making is probably the biggest thing that I encounter is that so many people start in network marketing and they sort of transition. Maybe they were working, they were W-2, or maybe they still are. Maybe they were a homemaker and now they're doing this as an opportunity as well. And usually the fascinations, it starts with the product. I mean, I know that you work with Isogenics, and I love Isogenics. I did the cleanse, and that's got it, man. I got hooked on that. And then the E-shot, oh my Lord, I'm tapping the vein on that bad boy every day. But so you get into this thing, and you start it, and you enjoy the product. And then the product, you start sharing it with others, and you start making some money. So what's the biggest advice? The biggest advice I can share with all of you is this. You are a business because you're earning money. So at the end of every year, Isagenix will send you a 1099, and in box 7B of that 1099 is the income that you earn throughout the year. Now, what the IRS loves to do is it loves to say that network marketers are not business owners, they're hobbyists. In other words, they're not really running this like a business. You're running this for fun. Every convention is a personal vacation, not a business trip. So what is the biggest thing that I can share with you is this, is that you are a business because you earn money. Now, if you want to be treated like a business and you want to run it like a business, then we have to do a few things in addition to just earning. It's not what we earn that is important, but how we record that earning, how we do things in terms of budgets and banking. There's just a whole bunch of stuff that we'll can cover in this call, hopefully, that I think is important. So the number one thing is that you are in business, all right? Number two, how do you run a business? Well, it sounds kind of simple, right? Of course, well, I know how to run a business, I'm making money. But the biggest thing that I would share with you is that the problem with network marketing is that we receive money like on an ISA card, right? And you get that money on the card, and then that card becomes sort of this opportunity for us to do both personal and business spending. And that's not how a business runs. If you really want to run it like a business, the most important piece of advice that I can offer you is this. Open up a business bank account. Put the money that you earn from the business into that bank account and only spend money on business expenses through that account. And any money that you want personally, go ahead and take it out of the company, but put it into your personal account. So really what we want to do is we want to have two accounts, one for the business and then one for you. When the business makes money, all the money that that business makes should go into that bank account. And then any money you want from that earned income, take it out. But now we start to separate the difference between an expense and then personal.
I love that. And I know you said to me that obviously there's some huge tax, what would you call it? Tax benefits this year. So could you, let's say maybe we can give a couple of different scenarios for the person on here that might be earning an extra $12,000 a year and $1,000 a month, you know, and so it's a hobby-ish or a part-time thing. What are the implications this year with the recent tax changes on what they could be saving if they get structured properly versus someone that's earning $60,000 to $100,000 a year?
Well, there's, you know, to me, if you're making $1,000 a month, you've got a pretty good business. I mean, I think that's significant money. I really do, because that proves to you that you can make it. And from $1,000 to $2,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 a month, not a big jump. Really, it's just time and effort. But the biggest thing for somebody like that is going to go back a little bit to our discussion. Are you running it like a business? You have to understand, the IRS sees that $12,000. So we're using your example, right, Rebecca? And we're saying, okay, I make $12,000, $1,000 a month. But the IRS doesn't think you're a business, right? And my question to a lot of your listeners is, do you think it's a business? Are you running it like a business? Are you treating it like a business? So is that money being spent on just business expenses? Are we recording that properly? Are the expenses that we're doing, do we have budgets set up for our business so that we know when we're profitable? These little pieces are the proof that the IRS is looking for that you're running it the right way. So if I make $1,000, I think your question was what are some of the things in the new tax law that are opportunistic for us? And most of that is this 20% write-off that we get on our net profit. So the way that the IRS calls this, right? So we have gross income, the money that we make. And then we have deductions, and then we have expenses, and then we have net. And this really becomes sort of the profit of our business. I hope you can see all that very clearly.
We can see it perfectly. Though I'm going to have to ask you later maybe to draw that other beautiful thing you drew that one time.
Okay. So this deductions and expenses, this stuff here, be like internet, telephone, travel, products, things that we spend in the relationship of our business, and then also us, right? So we're spending money and we're taking that money out of the account for us. Well, what's ever left over, we're going to write off under the new tax bill 20% of what the IRS, right? They called this, and I hate to get all technical because it sounds like I'm, just throwing a bunch of wind around. So sorry about this, but it is kind of specific. It's called QBI, and that's called Qualified Business Income. And what QBI represents is that after the expenses and the money that is considered reasonable for you to receive based upon the income that you made, what's left over is QBI, Qualified Business Income, and we get to write off 20% of that at the end of the year under the new tax bill. So 20% of it is not even going to be taxed. That's the beauty of it. So this is a golden opportunity. So if we had, let's say, $10,000 left over at the end of the year, 2,000 of it is not even going to be taxed, which would mean that only 8,000 would be taxed. So that's really the biggest adjustment in the tax bill. The other one that I think is important for everybody to be aware of, because it is a change, it is a significant change, is meals and entertainment. And you and I have talked about this before. This one really, I think the legal term is it sucks. It really does suck, because the things that we do in business, particularly in network marketing, is that we network, right? We buy coffee, we have lunches, we do things. And then now they're saying that's no longer deductible. So you can't write that off anymore. So your meals and entertainment, those things are no longer deductible. What you need to start doing is business promotions. Business promotions are deductible. They're 100% deductible. So like a house party, or you do something at a hotel, or even something smaller than that, but you're inviting people to it. Then you could have food and beverages and things like that, and you can write it off. But meeting an individual for lunch, buying coffee for somebody in your downline, I used to do that all the time, just spend a lot of money on my clients and go to the events. Can't do it anymore because that is no longer deductible. So those are the two big changes, the QBI, right, on your profit, and then meals and entertainment. Turn your meals and entertainment into business promotion.
Before we go down the rabbit hole of this, because I know at the end I'm going to want to ask you some very specific things, I want to go back just a minute. And I know when I got started with our first call, we went over a couple of different things that you really teach people to practice. And it's to be, like you said, to be taken seriously as a business because you're operating as a business. And one thing I just want to edify you is, not only obviously do I think you're a very skilled attorney, or I want to be bringing you on the call, and funny, which is just an added bonus, but you really, in a way, coach. I mean, you coach in the fact that you're not just telling your clients, this is the rules, this is what you need to do, but you're really helping improve their business understanding and strategy. Can you go over the different areas that it's important people have competency in their business? Like we talked about time management and those other areas.
Mm-hmm. Well, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself as a business owner is to get the right mindset, right? Mindset is everything. I mean, what's the event horizon, right? So where am I going? Right, so this is the road that I'm traveling, and where am I going? So if I'm making, let's say, $1,000 a month, is my goal to only make $1,000, or is it to make $2,000? Is it to make $3,000? Where am I going? How am I going to get there? What I see so much in business today is that there's such a heavy emphasis on the hustle, right? Doing something, being busy. There's a huge difference between being busy and being productive. So one of the things that we would say is like, well, what are, some good advice that you would give somebody starting out? Let's say you're people on this call. Well, the number one thing I would say is budget. Create a budget. It is as boring as anything, right? People always just, they make faces and they have a lot of trepidation about it, but you make money. So let's start with our example, right? We make $1,000 a month. My very first question in a business call with a client is, how much did it cost you to make that $1,000? And then that is really the essence of a budget. So let's say I may have, let's say Facebook, right? I might do business promotions on it. I might have products. I have phone. I have internet. And these become what I will refer to as operational expenses. This is critical because if I make $1,000, but it's costing me $200 to make $1,000, that means that I only have $800 left over to go to my favorite person, which is me, right? And in your case, you. So why is a budget important? Because it determines when you're profitable, right? If I make $1,000 and it costs me $200, that means I have $800 left. If I need $1,000 a month for me personally, I got a problem. So this critical analysis of your numbers is probably the most important thing that you can do, because what it does is it establishes a baseline. So this is my average. I make $1,000, I spend $200 to make it, I have $800 profit. If I made $2,000 the next month, I'd have $1,800 in money. But that's how you have to kind of create a rhythm and a system to it. And then the other thing would be make sure what you're deducting is deductible. Oh my Lord.
Well, I'm gonna jump in really quick because a question I have, and this is obviously an isogenic specific question, because you had mentioned, well, two things. One is the meals and entertainment expense change. That's for 2018. It does not affect 2017, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll get into the nitty gritty of that ideally at the end of the call. So for example, for isogenics, my understanding was always I couldn't write off product for personal consumption. However, in isogenics, in order to keep your account active to earn money, we have to order 100 BV. So what is your translation of what would be a write-off and what wouldn't?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. The IRS, think about this for a moment, Rebecca, and everybody. Just listen to this for a second. How many network marketers are there in our country? Thousands, hundreds of millions of them. And they all have this qualifying, we call it BV with isogenics, but they all have qualifying things for commission. Yet the IRS has absolutely zero rules about that. Nothing. There's no laws. There's no revenue ruling on it. And you think of all of these people that are in business, there's absolutely zero that the IRS tells us as a guideline to what is a deductible for auto ship, what I refer to as auto ship. Now, the IRS does have a guide on how to audit a network marketer. They have a pamphlet on that, and they tell their auditors, when you are examining a home-based business and they are buying product for personal consumption and they're writing that off as a business expense, that is a non-deductible expense. So you can see right away we have confusion. No rules by the IRS that says it, but then they tell their auditors how to attack you when they do. So where's the continuity here that we're looking for? So here's my advice. If you purchase product to qualify for home office, or excuse me, for BV, to get your commission, that would seem to be a reasonable business-related expense. And it's a good faith argument, right? And the IRS basically cannot penalize you if you have a deduction where there's no clarity in the law and you have a good faith argument. They can assess a tax in an audit, but they can't give you penalties and interest, all right? So that would be something we'd say, okay, if it's $100, it's $100, but that's not what I see. What I see is people spend hundreds.
And they write up the whole thing.
And we're living the dream on that product stuff. And that's the problem. So when we go in excess of the product, that's when we're getting into areas, because then we say, well, I'm buying the product because I want to feel good. I want to share that with people. And I'm kind of like a walking billboard for the benefits of my company's services. But the service, the IRS doesn't see it that way. So now what about products that we give away? Well, that's definitely part of business promotion. That could be considered business gifting. That could be stuff that we do that's pretty commonplace in our industry to create promotions and events and reward people. So the only issue here is recording. You gotta keep track of that stuff. So much of what you and I covered in our initial meetings and things that we've shared in terms of our discussions is just how fast and loose everybody is out there and not really running it like a business. You got to run it like a business, so you got to keep track of expenses. If you give a product away, you should have a little journal for it and who you gave it to. It's not a big thing, and it's not like you have to send the IRS a big thing unless you give them more than, let's say, $600 in a given year. But I mean, these little product things in your giveaways, what you're doing by recording it is you're shifting the burden to the IRS to prove that it was not a legitimate expense. So we go back to our basic question, good practice. What's the good advice? Run it like a business. No business in America would buy a bunch of product, put it in their thing or in their storefront and just give it away and not keep track of it. Nobody does that stuff. But in network marketing, hey, Bobby, man, that's like the stuff I see all the time. Like, that's okay because my upline did it or because they talk about that at convention. That's not really making it a business expense. And with a little bit of liberty here, I'd say the other one is clothes and personal grooming.
Oh, yes.
I hate to say it to you, but it's just not a business expense.
Well, since we're in here, can we just go down so gym memberships, even if you're prospecting clients at the gym, that's not a write-off, right?
No, it's not. And either is my clothes. And I'm a clothes horse, dude. I mean, I love clothes.
So just because you recruit your hairdresser as she's doing your hair, you can't write off the haircut and color.
Even though today I might look like I stole somebody's picnic blanket, the idea about clothes is that you can't write off clothes. Now, if it's a uniform and you got your name on it and that's your business attire, that's a different thing. But personal maintenance, hair, nails, clothing, massages, those are just not business expenses. And even though you have, kind of a good faith argument that you can justify and say it, if we can't find it in the tax code, then we can't do it. And if we say, how do you run a business? You run a business by taking business deductions, not assumptions about a deduction without fact.
What about, things like, let's say that are branded, like this says Isogenics, this one,
Yeah.
or clothes that said the brand on it for people that want to, get a gym bag or something because that's promotional, that would be a write-off.
Yeah, that would be a write-off. I would absolutely agree with that. And I'm doing that for the purposes of branding, et cetera. A big believer in that.
Okay. Now this is going to be a scary one, but so we did say that if you're giving away samples, that is a write-off, but again, you need to record it or you need to account for it. And again, that personal 100 is most likely, but not, I would say like the 2 e-shots a day are only a write-off if that's the only product you're consuming, and that keeps you at 100, not above and beyond. But talk to us about the events, because there's a lot of people that maybe they're doing this very part-time and they're making just enough to get to the events a year because they love the event. So what kind of is and isn't a write-off revolving events and contests, or like buying tickets and giving them to your downline?
Well, you're going to an event, so you remember, your enemy is not me, right? So don't start tripping, all right? I'm on your side.
What do you advise so that we can stay out of being audited?
I want to write off everything, but the events, that's a legitimate expense. That's a business trip. You're going there for the purpose to learn more about the product and the network, et cetera. But here's where you get into this thing with the service, right? So the IRS loves to deem network marketing companies as hobbyists, right? And to be considered to be a hobby, you have this rule that says if you didn't show a profit 3 out of 5 years, then they could call you a hobby. And you look at a lot of network marketing business owners, and they're making very little money, but they go to convention and they spend a lot of money to get there. So usually they have losses that are greater than the income that they make. That's not uncommon in business. I didn't make money my first year or my first couple of years, but nobody would say I was a hobbyist, but it's the industry that kind of gets that reputation. So what you have to remember is that's a presumption, right? So the burden of proof shifts to you, and it says, okay, well, you've got all these losses and you've incurred losses more often than you incurred profit. We want to call you a hobbyist, so that means you're going to lose all your deductions. So how do you combat that? By recording the stuff that you do. Ironically, the thing that's going to save you in business is the details that we're talking about doing that you haven't guessed, that you haven't been doing, that you think is too cumbersome or too challenging. But believe it or not, these details are the things that are going to protect you. So keeping a journal of who you gave to. If you go to a convention, who did you meet? What did you talk about? Keeping track of those expenses. You know, hotel bills, you actually have to get the physical receipt from the hotel, not the credit card statement that you pay. So the IRS really kind of puts in these little pieces in there. They're kind of trippy things. They're stuff that they do that I feel like are kind of traps.
Does like the printed email folio count if it's not physically from the front desk, but they like email it to you as long as you print it out? Does that count?
Yeah, as long as it's printed out. But what you recognize in the hotel, right? If I just put a credit card charge on that and I use my credit card statement as my receipt, the problem with the hotel bill is it could have food, right? Well, the hotel is 100% deductible, but business travel, right now, this is a law change too. With business travel, you get meals and entertainment for you to keep you alive when you're on the road, but that's only 50% deductible. So if a hotel bill, let's say, is $1,000 and there's room charges and then there's also food, they want to see that broken down. And that's why they ask you to do it. And your tips at the hotel and the taxis, all of that, that's all business deduction. I recommend creating a folder. One of the things I'm doing, I'm getting ready for a trip. I'm going to be flying out to Florida here in a couple of days. And I have a folder for that trip, who I'm meeting with, hotel reservations, everything. And I put this in my tax folder in my year end so that I have each business trip is in its own little thing with its own deductions and its own expenses. You asked me, what's the best advice I could give you? Being a business owner is a hustle. Okay, it just is. You know, people want to glamorize it and make it sound all awesome and everything, and it is truly that, but it is also discipline. And if you ain't got discipline, then you pick the wrong thing, because discipline is what creates the opportunities for us. So these little details go into folders, recording who we did things, writing down our mileage when we drive our car. I mean, they suck. They're not fun. And if they're not fun, then you should get a job. Okay? Because
I wanted to share, and this is from another client of Jeffrey's who I know introduced us, but someone yesterday said there's so much freedom and commitment because you're not looking for other things to fix your situation. And I feel like this is just committing to it. And I know for me, you know, I've been a 6-figure earner for a few years in my network marketing business, and it was really a little scary about what I didn't know. You know, you don't know what you don't know. I just knew there was a lot of it. And so when I met you and I'm like, you're going to break this down for me and teach me this. Yes, there's some time up front that you're going to invest, but so was there to understand our business and make it profitable.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't, like, ain't nobody going to give a crap about your success except you, right? Your CPA, you're waiting for them to give you advice, and the reality is, or your tax professional, whoever that may be, they don't give advice because that's not what they do. That's not their job. That's what stung me when I got audited. I've been going to my CPA who was doing tax planning and everything, and I figured if I was doing something wrong, they'd tell me. They didn't tell me. They just recorded what I did, put it on the tax return, and when I got audited, I owed the tax money. They didn't. So your success is important to you. Doesn't matter to anybody else. And nobody's tripping about what you don't know, but you need to know things, and I can help with that. I can answer some questions like we're doing a little bit here. But there has to be a commitment to learn. And I always say, it's, if you got to burn to learn, then you're going to be great in business. But if you're just hoping that everything's going to work out and you don't know what questions to ask and you're not trying to figure out what you don't know, you're going to struggle. You're going to use a lot of trial and error. Okay.
What other questions I know? Oh, what is the number one mistake you see people do, whether solopreneurs, business, small business owners, or network marketers?
The biggest mistake I see is a lack of discipline about time. Okay. And you and I, we talked about this before, and it's so important. So let's say I have a business and now I'm the business owner and I can do whatever I want, right? I can come, go, do this, do that, whatever I want. But ask yourself this, would you hire you? Right? I wrote a book last year with Brian Tracy, and I wrote a whole chapter on this. But the thing that I always see is people spend too much time fiddle farting around, right? They wake up and they, sometimes they go to the gym and they start a little late, or maybe they have very busy schedules and they only have a finite amount of time that they can use to start this business, but they squander that time. What's the biggest mistake I see? You need to have a schedule for time. I know it sucks, but if you have 2 hours a day and that's all you have, then you got to check in. I mean, you got to check in. If it's going to be the 2 hours, then what are you going to do in that 2 hours? Well, I'm going to post on Facebook, and that's praying that something's going to rain. You got to prospect. You got to go after leads. You got to talk to your downline. You got to motivate and inspire. And if it's only 2 hours a day, then make it 2 hours of productive time.
That's probably the number one question I get from people is like, what do you do in your day? And I just to second everything you said in the beginning, when, especially if you are making that income or that gap from a traditional job, working for someone else where they're telling you what to do and you have certain requirements to stay employed versus working for yourself where you now structure a day. I know for myself, that first year was really a learning experience that, rebelling against that system doesn't work. And I'll just really quickly share my screen because now this is one of the things you and I went over, like every moment of my day until 5 o'clock is absolutely accounted for. And then between, 5 and 7, that's time with my son. And there's not much accounting for a 2-year-old and scheduling. It's just chaos. But I just wanted to acknowledge that is something that you teach is time management.
Yeah. And I think that, and people trip on that stuff, right? They, it's like, that's not what I want to be. But it's a question of success. Do you want success? Or do you want to be not busy? Do you want to spend time in front of a TV, or do you want to hustle? I know these are hard things to hear sometimes. It truly is. And I get it because I love downtime. I do. But I also have a business and it needs me. And if I'm not there, it can't earn like it can when I'm available and when I'm working. So time management becomes a big thing. And I think that it's not challenging. You just say, if I'm going to have only, let's say 2 hours or 3 hours, or somebody like yourself who, really can handle that discipline of a full day like that, you got to clock in, and what you do on your schedule is perfect. This is the time that's going to be dedicated to this. This is it. And play with that schedule. Learn to adapt to it. Don't be so strict that it's impossible to meet it, because then you feel like a slave. It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. You can't just grind. This is not all about grit and perseverance. Sometimes you just got to let it go and take a day off. But if you have 2 hours, make them a productive 2 hours. And look at your day. Honestly, do an honest evaluation of that day.
Love it. So I know when we first chatted, the big questions I had is like, some people are like, oh, you need to be an LLC, or you need to be this, or you need to be that. How do you determine, or what are the questions you use to determine what is the most beneficial structure for someone to structure their business as?
Well, the easiest way to do this stuff is to run it, just form an LLC, right? It's typically when I meet a network marketing client, I form them in LLCs, because an LLC can be taxed as a sole proprietorship. It could be taxed as a corporation, so you have flexibility, and you can change it. So an LLC can be changed year after year, depending upon the circumstances of your finances. The biggest thing that I would say about a business entity is this. A business entity is your commitment to your subconscious that you're really in it. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, if you're running your business and you haven't committed to it, then forming an LLC or a corporation would seem overwhelming. And, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put that off. I'm not there yet. And you and I work with a very great coach, another gentleman that we know, Jeffrey Combs. And, he has a great expression. He says, people are always getting ready to get ready to get ready to do nothing or to procrastinate. So answering your question, if you're in this really to be a business owner, then you've got to start talking to your subconscious like you are a business owner. And being a business entity is the entry point. Nobody in America that is successful and really successful is still running as a sole proprietor. Nobody. That is an entry level product, and it lacks vision. No disrespect, but it just does. So if you're trying to say, what's the next step? You got to start talking to yourself. Now, Rebecca, you and I have had the opportunity to talk many, many times, and I hope I'm not scaring anybody here, but I am absolutely convinced and believe with my soul that what we believe is what we achieve. Our self-talk in this day and age, because of social media and everything else, is so negative that it's so limiting that we end up we stuff stuff that we should do. We don't follow our instincts. We don't follow our intuition. We second guess ourselves on everything. And it's just wrong. So if you want to create your business and be more successful in it, and you're committed to that, then you have to manifest that. One of the easiest way to do that is to make that commitment and form there you go. There's your business entity. And then what does that do? Well, it changes my mindset, because it changes, well, now I got to learn something new, and now I've got to do this, and now I got to do that. I can change. And I used to always say that, I am who I am. I'm never going to change. And that was just a cop-out and such BS, because if you don't change, there's no growth. So if you're listening and you feel like this sort of intuitively is speaking to you, then that's kind of what I would suggest that we do, is talk about that. Where does that take you? What does it do? Well, it places you at the starting line. It puts us in a position to move forward. It gets you and your subconscious in alignment, because your subconscious is really your belief system, and it's operating at a computer speed level. And your conscious mind, what you see, that's just you observing the world. But what's happening underneath it is everything, your beliefs, how you see it. And I think business entities change the landscape of that. I truly, truly do.
Absolutely. Is there anything else? I mean, before I give your contact information, like how they can get a hold of you, is there any other kind of tips or thoughts that you would have for this group?
I would just say you're going to work hard, right? Everybody works really hard, and you make money, and you work almost exclusively on the production of income, but not in the receipt of income. I have this great expression, you've heard it before: the more you know, the less you will owe. Every business owner in America, the government survey, is overpaying their taxes by about $11,000 a year, and lost profit that they're paying in taxes, not because their CPA is bad, but because the business owner is the one that needs to know about deductions. And you're delaying that because you think that's the province of your tax professional. It is not. It belongs to you. So if you want to have more profit, then learn to minimize your taxes. That's just education, and that's the burn to learn, the desire to do it. So the more you know, the less you owe. I would say that would be a great takeaway from our call.
I love that. No, I do want to give a plug out to you. Thank you, first of all, so much for taking your time, and hopefully people are feeling more enlightened and not terrified. Now, the other thing that actually scares a lot of people, I'm gonna first just give a plug for you and let you kind of talk about how people get a hold of you. But I know when I looked at, okay, I need to go talk to an attorney or an accountant and find out, like, dig through the murk that is what I think my business is. It was scary because could be very costly. And I think that was one of the biggest things, is that you have made this into an art of clarifying and getting someone organized, and set up from a business standpoint. I'm going to share really quickly your website. So if anybody wants to get a hold of you, it's BurnettandAssociates.com. And I'll also type that in the chat, but BurnettandAssociates.com. But can you just, first of all, do you work in every state? I don't know that. Obviously, I know that you work in California, where I'm at, but who could reach out to you and find out about your services, and what in general is the cost if somebody wants to utilize your firm to get set up for their LLC, which obviously I highly recommend.
So we form companies all over the country. All 50 states. Actually, I form corporations and LLCs all over the world. I'm actually forming several today outside of the U.S. jurisdiction. But the cost of it is not very expensive. It's $750, and then there's state fees depending upon the state that you're in. Some states are $50, so it'd be $750 plus 50 or 100, depends upon the state. The thing that I think that makes us unique, because you have all these companies online like LegalZoom and the Company Corporation and 800 Company and all these other things, and they're far less expensive than me, absolutely. But the difference is that we're an education company. We don't just form it, we teach you how to. I'm an educator. My passion is teaching and sharing and trying to get people to understand the opportunities and the responsibilities. So when we form a business entity, we know you don't know what happens next, but we do. So instead of you wondering and wandering the earth and trying to figure out what do you do, we anticipate the questions that you should be asking. You said it, right? I don't know what I don't know, but I know that what you need to know, and I can fill in those gaps. So we do that through our formations. That's like do-it-yourself stuff that we offer. We do a lot of webinars on that. And then we also offer it through coaching. And I know that I've talked to several of your friends and colleagues that have been referred to me, and we are working on those different projects at different times because everybody's at different places.
Well, and one thing I'll say, and I've never tried to use one of those online sites. I know for me, my mom's a CPA, and I agree, they never answer with a yes or no. It's like always like an opinion. But I had previously formed a company. I shouldn't tell you this because you'll charge me more next time. No, I'm teasing. But I had paid $5,000, and I got a couple extra documents that I needed for that. But then every time I had a question, because I didn't understand one of the documents, it was like $200 and $250 an hour to have a assistant answer. And that was the thing I just wanted to say about you, is not only was the $750, did it cover, like, which I was so impressed, like my beautiful book with everything I need, but it also covered your one-on-one time of you actually walking me through it, which I don't know how you make the time, but that's been the most invaluable thing for me, is not just getting the structure, but having the clarity of what to do with it after.
Well, thank you for that. Like I said, my passion is teaching. Our company is not like a law firm where we charge for hourly or things like that. We teach. I believe everybody wants to know these answers. They just don't know where to go. So you sharing it really helps me. Tell everybody what your company name is.
Well, this was with yours, your help. It's Rebecca Cafiero International LLC, which I will say it is mental, because I used to just be like, okay, I'm doing this business and it earns money. And then I've got these other like hobby things. I'm not sure what I want to do with them. And, I got, my business all set up. And when that thing arrived, I'm like, that is legit. And now all of a sudden, all these other little side projects, I'm like, wait a second, my book that I write is under this umbrella. This other thing I'm doing is under this umbrella. And now what I'm realizing is I'm finding more ways to monetize all of the things that I'm doing. And that's really exciting.
First of all, I think Rebecca Cafiero International is the sickest name I have ever heard. I love that name. But what you're saying too is really kind of what we've experienced really in terms of manifestation. What changed? Nothing. It's the same business, right? It's exactly the same. What changed was you and my mindset about my business and my approach. Writing down budgets, that's not changing anything, but it does change how you feel about your business. And when you change how you feel and your emotions change and there's that enthusiasm, That's transformational stuff. It really is. And it's hard to quantify in a world where everybody's looking at science and they say, that doesn't make any sense because I don't have a formula for it. But if you believe it, you will achieve it. And you can't believe it if you don't see it. And that's what I'm absolutely passionate about. Self-talk, the language that we use, the emotions that we feel about the destination that we want to arrive at. I think that's everything. And you and I both had an opportunity to work with a great business coach who shared that and taught that to me.
Absolutely. Well, just two other things. One is somebody had a question, and I don't know if there's a specific answer, but what's the fee if someone wants to incorporate as an S Corp?
Same fee, $750.
So Pavlina, that's for you. And then for everyone else on this call, where you'll find this, so I'm going to upload this recording to YouTube. So you'll be able to find it at the Elevate Your Life YouTube. But also I'll post it in the groups that I posted the event. So Isogenics Business, I'll post it in there. And again, feel free to reach out to me personally, Rebecca Cafiero. If you don't see the recording, I'll just shoot it your way. And one more question, Greg. Does it have to be a business account or can it simply be an additional checking account? It needs to be a business account, right?
Well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, you have the must and you should. I like business accounts because, again, I'm trying to prove I'm a business owner.
Right.
The ammunition that the IRS wants to use is say you're not really a business owner. So what looks more like a business account or a personal account?
Well, I know and Greg, who asked this question, Greg, when I went down, I bank at Chase. And so I called them and I said, hey, I want to set up an appointment with a business banker. I have a company that I just formed. I need to set up business banking. And they actually just had me send over the form. I just emailed them over my form with my tax ID number on it. And they were able to get everything set up. I just went down and signed. And there wasn't, I think it's like $10 a month or something. It's a very nominal fee for the checks. So,
yeah,
all right.
I want to change the way you think, the way you work, the way you do business, and the way you pay taxes. But my burn to teach it can't be greater than your burn to learn. So if you have a desire to, if you're committed to your success, I mean, you're not just, talking the talk, but you're really to walk the walk. I absolutely am convinced that I can help you. Get there fast.
Exactly. It's way more fun to get there fast. Thank you so much, Scott, for taking the time. And thank you everyone for making the time to jump on this call. And again, please share this because I feel like there's a lot of great training resources on how to grow our business. But I know for me, the other side of how I'm treating my finances and knowing more so that I can owe less is something that I don't feel like is addressed enough. So please, do the good service of passing this on to someone when you get it. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.